Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webcast on how industrial magnetics is using DriveWorks automation. I'm the moderator, Krista Proper. Before we get started, I want to let you know that you can submit questions for today's presenter by typing them into the Q&A panel at any time. We'll collect them and adjust them at the end of the presentation. And now I'd like to introduce our presenters. We're happy to have with us today David Dewey from Industrial Magnetics and Aaron Winters from Fisher Unitech. Aaron, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Krista, can you still hear me okay?
You sound great.
Fantastic. Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Winters. I'm the Design Automation Specialist here at Fisher, and I've had the distinct pleasure of working with David Dewey of Industrial Magnetics over the last couple of years as we've been moving through their implementation. And today, really, he's going to be the one that steals the show and talks about how they've been able to implement the tool there. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand that right over to Dave, and Dave, take it away.
Oh, hello. My name's David Dewey, and basically I'm going to be, this is very similar to a presentation we did at DriveWorks World a couple months back, so if you were there for that, you'll see most of the same stuff, but we've added a couple more things as we've gone ahead and added even more automation in our company in the last couple months. So really kind of the main idea here is that we're just going to go crazy and automate everything. We're going to automate SolidWorks. We're going to automate our business systems. You know, every little nook and cranny we can get into with automation, we've been working towards that. So let me get started here. I'll just introduce our team. On the left here is Jen. She's our inside salesperson and also has worked pretty closely with our outside sales team. And her primary responsibilities have been trying to get all the quote documents cleaned up, working extensively on the UI and the behavior, really working really hard to get our business process documented and tied into our workflow in DriveWorks, and just has been a great help. Next to her is me. I'm the DriveWorks team lead. My main day job is as a mechanical designer for our tramp metal engineering team. But as I worked towards, as you'll see in the next few slides, as I work towards trying to make things a little bit more automated, my role has kind of ballooned out pretty significantly, and now we're taking on all kinds of stuff. To the left of me here is Todd Bernhardt. He runs our website, and he is part of our marketing team. He's been just kind of a jack of all trades, really. He's taken on a lot of our integration projects, again, as we'll talk about later with SQL, integrating with some of our other business systems. And he's also got a good graphic eye for UI, super techie, and he's also one of the only other person really who's running DriveWorks administrator for our group. And next to him, the tall guy on the right, is Dan Allure. He's my boss. He's been really helpful as far as bouncing ideas off of. He's been kind of the intermediary between our team and the management team here at Industrial Magnetics, and he's been real essential as well. Not quite as essential as Aaron Winters right there, who's really been a part of our team from the get-go. He's been instrumental in getting us off the ground and getting us steered back on track the couple of times we've strayed. So really thankful to have Aaron, and as I know, everybody I've bumped into who's had the opportunity to run across his help has been really, really happy to have him on their team as well. So to kick it off, we'll be basically kind of talking about 5 general topics. The first one will be scope evolution, and just want to talk a little bit about kind of where we got started and how we ended up getting where we were with DriveWorks in the beginning, and then even beyond that, how it's grown in scope and evolved. So we started off probably, we got our first seat of DriveWorks in October 2017, and I was working on automation stuff for probably 2 or 3 years prior. Kind of noticed a lot of patterns and some of the configurations that we were doing, and we have thousands and thousands of legacy models that we would try to find something very similar. We're a fab shop at our core, and our method is basically to find a model that's similar to what we're working on for a particular customer, do a pack and go off of that, and either bringing it up to current design standards or find a current standard and morph it into something custom for the customer. So I started to notice a lot of repetition there, and kind of out of that was born, we call it DriveWorks 1.0, and really it's just it's an Excel spreadsheet. There's a lot of stuff going on behind it, but basically this is, if you're familiar at all with DriveWorks, this was our form. Our form for our configurator. So what we can do is we've set this up where the inside salesperson can go through and configure the product. They plug in their options. They plug in sizes. We've got some dynamic changes, things that we had going on with the images, and kind of giving them some envelope dimensions and things like that. And from this, this was all tied back to a pretty massive design table on a separate sheet. And that design table ended up driving a SolidWorks model that had tons of equations and formulas and logic built within it. And when we started out, we were really just trying to focus on some of the more common things. And what we found is as we grew it to become more complex, these models became just hugely weighted down. We're talking probably 90 to 100 or so equations on any given part, sometimes more in different assemblies, and SolidWorks is just not cut out to manage that kind of processing, and it just became really slow to work in the drawings, really slow to work in the models. And I'd actually submitted one of what I thought was kind of more simple models to Fisher Unitech, and I can't remember his name offhand. Aaron, if you want to chime in and give him credit, I think it was Nick.
Yeah, Nick Pusateri.
Yeah, and he's like, "What are you trying to do with this thing?" Because there were a good number of equations in there, and it was just really bogging down. And he's like, I've seen companies go this route before, and it doesn't end well. Have you looked into DriveWorks? And I had a few years before, and I can't remember why I came to the conclusion I came to as far as just to try this path. Obviously, we already had Excel. It wasn't really a big stretch to do anything more in SolidWorks, so this was kind of the path of least resistance at the time. So he put me in touch with some people at DriveWorks and put me in touch with Aaron, and we were really kind of off and running with evaluating them as well as evaluating some other third-party CPQ solutions, as well as a CPQ solution for our existing ERP system, which is Infor XA version 9. And basically the conclusion we came to was we needed something that was for SolidWorks, by SolidWorks, and this gave us the opportunity to build this configure price quote system around an engineering focus, which there are engineers in all of the divisions within our company, and very like-minded thinking people that take very pragmatic approaches to our business processes, and this fit right in with that. So the whole idea was, all right, well, let's leverage DriveWorks as a solution to solve our quoting issues and to drive some models. And like I said, we got our first administration license in October of 2017, I believe. And from there, we pushed pretty hard for about a year, and we were able to get to the point where our quoting system has basically been replaced. There's some examples of some of the quote documents we get, and we've got 3 of our potentially about 40 configurators built to the point now where we're getting full-blown models, we're getting full-blown shop drawings with minimal cleanup. The modeling time has been cut drastically. The quotes themselves, as you can see here, we're leveraging this simplified representational model concept. So while this model may take 5 or 10 minutes to generate, this one takes seconds. It's just a simple part. But it gets the visual aspects of what the inside salesperson and the customer are configuring, and it puts it in front of them. What we were running into from time to time was that the information that had been quoted was getting lost along the way, or things were being described verbally and it wasn't real clear, or we were using a generic picture that didn't fully paint the picture of what the customer was actually configuring. So we're hoping that with this, and I know we've seen this in a couple of instances already, where even at the quote stage, we're getting a lot clearer picture and a lot more accurate to what the customer wants before it even touches the engineer's desk. So this is really cut down a lot of rework, cut down a lot of revisions, and it just helps tremendously having everybody looking at all the same documents. So from there, it was like, okay, well, just give a quick picture here of where our quoting has gone. 1.8, 2 million, that's about where we typically stand. So you can see how we have kind of ramped up over the last 6 months or so into hitting practically all our quoting. Let me back up. Yeah, and so the idea, once we got to that point and we started shifting gears and our way of thinking was that really DriveWorks is a development environment. That was something that Aaron told us about very early on, and we've really kind of latched onto that idea, and he's got a little bit to add to that for you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So like Dave was saying, early on we try to shift our thinking from just looking at DriveWorks as an engineering automation tool to kind of looking at it as a development platform or an automation operating system. I had a number of years as an Excel trainer, and DriveWorks is actually based off of Excel. And being able to kind of shift my thinking from looking at Excel as just a solution to do some charts and graphs to you actually can turn it into a real viable development environment where you can create databases and create a front-end UI and that kind of a thing. Very similar to what you saw Dave doing. Kind of just expanded my understanding of it. And then just applying the same concept here is that DriveWorks doesn't necessarily tell you exactly how to do something. They'll give you all the tools to make it happen, but the stuff that can happen is pretty amazing. So thanks, Dave. I'll turn that right back over to you, sir.
All right, man. So kind of expanding on that, we said, well, we've got an ERP system, we've got a CRM system, we've got all of these other tools that we use in our day-to-day business. We use Crystal reports, all sorts of things. The problem was that all of these tools were kind of living in a silo. So there wasn't a lot of cross-communication, cross-sharing of information. And what DriveWorks has allowed us to do with the addition of SQL is to kind of bridge those tools. In some cases, we're using the same tools we had, perhaps making some enhancements or putting a simpler UI on it that fits more with our business process. And in some other places, we're actually completely rebuilding a tool within DriveWorks or other applications, but again, that cross-functional use and making it do more or making it do better of what it did before. So we've kind of taken this and really looked at it like this is going to be the whole front end to all of our business systems. Too often you have businesses where they buy SAP or Oracle, and nothing against those software packages, but those are software packages that are designed to be super complex and to work for as many different businesses and industries as possible. And too often, you spend a lot of money to try and get these systems in place, and probably spend a lot of money on consulting to get things up to speed. And where you end up is trying to shoehorn your business processes and your terminology into the software, and so you kind of lose your identity. You lose kind of who you are. And then other times you've got companies who spend millions and millions of dollars to develop something for themselves, and it may not even ever get off the ground. But what this has allowed us to do is really move organically and build our system as we went along. So it's basically taking your matrix here and being able to see beyond the complexity. Here's a quick screenshot of our ERP system and some of the information related to a part. So we've tried to create this, we call it an abstraction layer in SQL, where we've built this information table between our ERP system and DriveWorks. And the advantage of that is we've been able to create these views and queries and procedures on the SQL side so that we can put our terminology in there. We can use our business our business terminology to reference everything and really make it ours. And it's been really, really successful so far. So quick shout out there to the Magnet Creator team. So that's our branding that we've gone through for this system. So just want to go through a couple little examples here first of some of the different things that we've used it for, and then later on get more into the CPQ template itself and some of the enhancements and things that we've worked through there. So the first one I want to talk about is our bill of material export from SolidWorks. So just to give you a brief background, many, many years ago, we would send a bill of material on a piece of, on a drawing into our production center, and that would be hand entered. So hand entered part numbers, quantities, all that stuff was manually entered in. One of our support companies for our ERP system came along and took us a little bit further, where we could export a CSV file from SolidWorks, and would go through a little bit of error checking and push it up, and then there was several additional steps down the line that the production center would have to do to pull that stuff in. And what we've discovered here is, by kind of piecing together a couple of chain of events here, leveraging DriveWorks Autopilot and this folder watcher capability, leveraging some of our integration tools that we had for our ERP system, right from creating stuff right out of SolidWorks. We've been able to, from the SolidWorks interface itself, push our bill of materials into our ERP system. Typically in the past, this process would take probably 3 or 4 minutes if everything went smoothly. If there were problems, which a fair amount frequency, it would often take a lot longer than that. And so just to kind of walk you through the steps here. So from SolidWorks, we've got a fairly simple macro. Some of you guys may already have something similar where you're exporting the bill of material table out to a CSV file and sticking it in a specific location. And then we are, within that same macro, exporting or creating a text file. And what that text file is, it's in a certain format that DriveWorks Autopilot Folder Watcher reads to kick off a specification. And so basically what that text file has in it is who the user is, because I end up notifying them on the back end of the results, what the part number is and where the file is and what project to run. And so what happens is it hits the folder watcher, kicks off a project, the project looks, slurps in the CSV file. We do a bunch of manipulation to the data. We've added, probably a dozen error checks now that before it was all kind of look at it and make sure it looks right or rely on people downstream to catch it, or, many times finding out after metal had already been cut or parts don't line up or stuff is not available to order anymore. So we've been able to really leverage a lot of that error checking so that things downstream move a lot smoother. And then from there, we take that, as long as there aren't any errors, and we push it out to our bill of materials system. And at the time when I had done a time study on it, we were saving about 10 hours a month, and that's probably about where we're at. So we have nine engineers in our group, and we process a ton of work and send a lot of bill of materials for both old and new products. And while 3 or 4 minutes may not sound like a whole lot, added up over time, obviously, it definitely shaves down. One of the other kind of cool projects we ran across is currently we label our products with a sticker. This looks great in the factory right after it gets printed off and put on our products, but after being in a meat rendering plant where I don't know how many are familiar with processing and stuff, but magnets are there to protect and pull out any ferrous materials from the product. And in a plant like a meat rendering plant or something like that, you can imagine these stickers don't hold up real well. They may get dirty, they may get worn, they may get ripped off in some cases, and we just needed a better solution. And so we recently, here in the last few months, we purchased a custom etching machine to specifically etch tags, and we finally got to the point where we were like, we needed to go forward on this. We needed to get these tags going into production, and me and another engineer here, Josh Abel, who's was a tremendous help. Within pretty much a day, we worked through getting the geometry out with our logo, getting everything to be very readable and usable, getting the QR code that can be scanned to pull up our manual online. And the awesome thing is this is all generated from DriveWorks. And depending on the product, a different manual QR code is pulled up. The fields are filled in for the serial number or the part number and all that sort of thing. And it just spits out this DXF file to be read by our laser to the point where they just load a blank in, load the file, and hit go. And less than a minute later, they've got a nice, snazzy steel ID tag that we can either weld on or bolt on or wire tie tag onto our product. And that's definitely going to hold up over time. And I think really as a nice professional look. So it's just cool to have the ability to, you've got this problem and you take DriveWorks and point it at it and really work through it to the point where you can solve a lot of problems. We were initially going down the path of, well, engineering is just going to enter all that information on the CAD file and then save out a DXF that we can load on the laser. And then, while that probably wouldn't have taken a ton of time to do, again, that's a few minutes for every product that we do, for every tag. Many times we'll be doing multiples, so you've got many different products on a given order, and that stuff adds up over time. And it's been awesome to be able to just take DriveWorks and point it at a problem and take our team and solve a problem that previously we would just have thrown bodies at. And it's just helped us to think more about design, because now you don't have thousands of models to maintain. You've got this 1 or 2 or 3 master models that you can focus all your energies into, that if you do design changes, you can very quickly and flexibly move to those changes. And it's just proven a lifesaver as far as just trying to keep the product up to date and keep things standardized so that the shop sees things the same way, customers see things the same way, and it's just been fantastic. So next topic I'd like to cover is the CPQ template. And I don't know how many of you have played around with the CPQ template. It's been around for a year and a half, maybe not officially. We were one of the first beta testers, probably the biggest beta tester as far as how many people we were having use it and all of the stuff that we were trying to do with it. Again, we looked at this as initially just a CPQ, configure price quote solution, but very quickly we saw that this can be much more than that. And so we started working on a beta of the CPQ template, and it's been fantastic that they've built this template that any customer can just pick up, plug their data into, and in very short order have something that's useful and powerful. So just want to go through some of the modifications that we had to do to get it to work for us. And ironically, there's several of these things that DriveWorks themselves have been making adjustments as far as their next versions to kind of make it a little bit more nimble and quick and work with larger data sets. So I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Hoarders, but if you have, this probably looks familiar. We're hoarders of data. We have 110,000 plus contacts. We have 65,000 companies in our CRM, and we have, that's even old, there's probably over 76,000 part numbers as last I checked in our ERP system. And while this has been super awesome for our customers, I mean, we have customers who call up and say, hey, I need a replacement magnet for something from 30 years ago. More than likely we'll have data on that, and that enables us to get them exactly what they want, which is awesome. But you've got to be able to manage all this data. So things running in group tables, while it works well for smaller data sets, we had to make some adjustments to get some of that stuff pointed at SQL, which is, if anybody's familiar with SQL, you know that it does awesome at that. It optimizes queries over time, so you get faster results and all that sort of stuff, and it's just much more adept at handling that. And so this is the dashboard, and we've taken this kind of philosophy as this is kind of like your home screen on your phone. This is our app launcher. And so all of our different business groups have their apps that they work from. Engineering has their magnet design app, purchasing has their magnet buy app, and our inside salespeople have their quote tool. And there are other apps that we'll kind of cover here later on in the presentation, but just to give you a quick rundown here. So here's just the quote app. So people can start a new project, or they can look at their priorities, or they can filter down by the state of the job. As I said, we've worked quite extensively on our business process and our workflow, and this all kind of ties in with that, so they can see the job at different stages. And then they've got access to universal search there, which we'll cover again too later. One of the other kind of tweaks we made was to this table view. The out-of-the-box CPQ version kind of has a lot of the stuff buried up in that details view, and we just wanted to bring a lot of that stuff down to the front. So we made what we affectionately call our info bar down there, and that gives you an overview of the entire job, or you can click on a specific line item and it'll give you details on that line item. You'll be able to pull up the simplified rep image or the 3D model right from there and get a view into the quote without fully diving in and editing forms and that sort of thing. So just bringing things more to the forefront there. We've enhanced the details screen, and this search section here looks into our CRM system, and that's basically leveraging our universal search tool that we've built. Just basically points at whatever data source you need to and pulls the information forward. So here it's looking into our company database. One of the cool things that we've run into as well is our ERP system is extremely old, and it's not being actively enhanced or developed. And one of the things that we internally were running into frequently was getting bogus credit card numbers. There's 16 numbers, sometimes there's 19 numbers. Somebody's reading it off to you over a phone. It might be a poor connection. You might fat finger something. You might write a number differently. And, like the telephone game, by the time it got down to our credit manager, probably half the time she was getting a bogus credit card number. And I don't know how many people are familiar with the credit card industry, but they have this thing called a Loon algorithm. It's basically a checksum, and it's an algorithm that guards against transposed digits or digits that are off by one. And so with the power of DriveWorks, we were able to throw that into a calculation table and actually do the credit card validation. Obviously, they can still get it wrong, but this is what the credit card companies put forth in order to fix exactly this kind of problem. Our ERP system didn't have any kind of validation. So what we are doing is building this into our billing so that once we get to the point where we're processing orders through the CPQ dashboard, we'll be able to validate those credit card numbers. Well, in the interim, we obviously want to use this sooner, and so we've basically plucked that functionality out and made kind of like a little helper app, which we call Credit Card Check, and that's brought the number of bogus credit cards down to practically zero for our credit manager. So she's happy. So we'll continue to use that until we push the workflow further down into creating orders. And there's just lots of little extra things that we've added in to help our people that either give them the view into another tool that we have or a system we have, or just help them along with their job. This is our main product view. So this is the configurator that you see here, and we've built upon the concept of SpecHost. I don't know if you guys know about SpecHost, basically where you can put a project within a project, and that's what a lot of the CPQ template is built upon, and we've taken it even further than that. So kind of what you see there in the yellow is the dashboard, and within that there is the order view project, and within that is what we call product UI, and that is a generic placeholder that sits around our regular configurators. And this is stuff that's relatable to all products. And then within that, we host all of our really specific configurators. And we've modularized that even further as well to whether it's got application information or connection information about a piece of equipment it might be bolting up to, or a robot end effector that it's connecting to. These are all kind of modular projects that go along with the 40 configurators that we'll have that just get reused and do their little part and move on. And so lastly, we've got something here called Universal Search. So for those familiar with the CPQ template, list view, this is really just a huge enhancement to list view. And what list view is it's a table view, and it looks at the data and it hosts it in all sorts of different areas throughout the CPQ template. And as I said, we basically took this even further yet and created something called Universal Search, so we can change the source. As you can see here, I'm just doing a quick filter down through of what we have. Everything's very contextual, and really at the end of the day, what this is doing in the background is it's actually building the SQL query. And what that allows us to do is we've now put the ability for somebody to do like what could be a really complex query of a business system or of our customers or of our product data, and we've put that tool in their hands where they can use it. We're going to have some common public searches built out. We've got plans to add in functionality where people can add in their own personal searches and filters for stuff that they frequently want to see. And then depending on the product data, we've got opportunities to export that out to SQL. And so while this is kind of a standalone thing, really anywhere where you see either search or a table view of data anywhere within our system, it'll have this project as a SpecHost nested within it. So you may not see all that search criteria, and it may be all filled in the background and you just see the results. But that way, this one project can kind of manage all that stuff. And we're just about to the point where pretty much everything is living in SQL, whether it's in a native database or an external one. So this can just really be pointed at anything there and take off. So that's what we call Universal Search. And that pretty much wraps up what we've got. And it's been just an awesome trip, and it's been cool. So I guess I'll hand it back over to Aaron, and thanks to Fisher Unitech, and thanks especially to Aaron.